Now, who here in this room has had a conversation about abortion? You know, social media, with people in person. And have you always known just what to say, the right things? Or have you, like me, been in a situation where you felt like you were in a corner, where you didn't know what to say, where you just felt stuck, and you felt like you lost somebody? And when you're pro-life and you know that a conversation can be the difference between life and death for a preborn child, that's a lot of pressure. And so for a lot of us, I think it can be easier to not have the conversation at all, because we don't want to get it wrong. We don't want to do it wrong because it's so important. Now, I've had the chance in more recent years to do a lot of high school presentations. So kind of what Cam did with you this morning, Basic Pro-Life 101. I get invited into high schools. Mostly I've done Catholic high schools. And I do the pro-life case. Now, I love doing high school presentations, particularly in these schools, because there is actually a lot of kids, unfortunately, who are pro-choice. So I can always tell those kids when they walk into the room, because they're not happy to be there. Because they don't agree with me, they know what I'm going to be talking about, and they have to listen for 45 minutes. So I list their argument, rebut their argument, and kind of go from there. But I also can tell which kids are pro-life, because they come into the room and they're not super excited, but they're engaged. But I've seen some of these kids, they're leaning forward. And as I get more and more into the presentation, doing the Pro-Life 101, they're nodding along. They start to smile. They get really excited. And after one presentation at a London high school, a girl came up to me afterwards. And she kind of waited until the other students were gone, and then she said, I had just gone to the March for Life recently. She's like, I always knew I was pro-life. And then I came back to school, and some of the kids were talking and said, so you went to the March for Life? She's like, yeah, I'm pro-life. And she's like, and they started throwing all of this stuff at me. They said, what about sexual assault? What if someone's life is in danger? What if women die when they have abortions? What are you going to do when abortion becomes illegal? And she said, I didn't know what to say. I had no answers for them, and I was starting to wonder if maybe I was wrong. And she had tears in her eyes, and she just said, but everything you said made so much sense. And when you say it that way, I'm like, yes, that's totally right, and I know what I can tell my friends now. I know what I can say to them. I just want to say thank you so much. Then she turned to go, and then she turned around again. She said, can I just give you a hug? Of course, she's like, I'm just so glad that you came. And we've all been in that position, right? Every single one of us at CCBR, colleagues, volunteers, they've all been in that position where we said, I don't know what to say in this situation. I don't know what to do. And that's why I'm so excited on behalf of CCBR to introduce our newest resource, STUF. Now, full disclosure, that is my name on the cover. I did put the resource together, but I want to make it very clear that I got to stand on the shoulders of pro-life giants. I didn't have to come up with these arguments. Super smart people came before me. People like Scott Klusendorf, Stephanie Gray, Francis Beckwith. They came up with these super amazing arguments, but they were complicated, philosophical. So when really brave pro-life people took to the streets to actually just have conversations about abortion because they knew abortion needed to end, so they're like, we're going to take these arguments and we're going to run with them. And eventually, they developed them so that they were accessible to everybody, so that they could have a 30-second to 3-hour conversation and actually really change people's minds on abortion. And then I came along and I got all of this handed to me. And so I'm one of the privileged ones. I didn't have to be a pioneer. For all of us here, we have the arguments given to us. We don't have to go out and not know what to say because it's all there. It's all there for us. So I went out and, I was doing pro-life presentations, again, like Cam did, and, we were having conversations on the streets, and all of that was going great. But after we do these pro-life presentations, and I actually just heard someone talk to Cam after his talk saying, can I get your notes for your presentation? People have asked, so great presentation, made a lot of sense, really great arguments. I couldn't write notes fast enough, or I didn't write notes. Can you just give me, what you had. And we didn't really have much. We said, well, we have our notes, we can give you our notes. And we got some stuff from Stephanie Gray's Love Unleashes Life, and there's some stuff from Scott Klusendorf's The Case for Life. And Randy Alcorn wrote a great book called, Pro-Life Answers to Pro-Choice Arguments. And there's Politically Correct Death, and that one's pretty deep, but there's a couple sections in there that are really handy. And people's eyes are glazing over. And we're like, yeah. So essentially, we don't actually have something to give you. So I was getting really frustrated. So I went to my boss, my big brother Jonathan, and I said, Jonathan, why don't we get a resource? And he looked at me and he's like, you're talking about a resource, like, pro-life apologetics, the full thing. I said, yeah, why don't we have that? He said, well, nobody has the time. He's like, we're out there, we're doing presentations, we're hitting the streets, we're coming up with big projects, we have a strategy to end the killing in Canada. We don't have time to sit down and write this kind of resource. So I was a bit naive. I didn't know exactly what he meant by not having the time. But I had been recently married, and all of the activism had gotten moved to Toronto, which is about an hour and a half away from my place. So the commute wasn't really working out that well. I was struggling to find, where's my place? What can I do? And so I said, well, what about me? Can I give it a shot? And he said, no. Well, you can come up with an outline and we'll go from there. So I said, okay. So again, I didn't realize I was a little bit naive. So I sat down and I realized what he meant when he said we didn't have the time. Because there's so much out there. And our Pro-Life 101 presentations and what you were given this morning, going through common ground, analogy, and question, going through the human rights argument, those are the most simple and the most powerful apologetics tools that we have. But at the end of the day, there is so much more. What if someone comes up and says, what about maternal mortality? What are you going to do? Because when abortion is illegal, women die. Don't you care about women? Or what if someone says, well, a woman can't be forced to give her kidney to her baby. Why could she be forced to give her uterus? Or, when does life actually begin? Nobody actually knows when life begins. How can you prove when life begins? And they're hitting you with all of these questions. Now, we don't have time to put all of that in one presentation. And the one thing Jonathan said to me when I started writing an outline, he said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So it's got to be comprehensive. It has to have everything. So, okay, what's everything? So I went through a bunch of those books that I just mentioned and a lot more. And there was online articles, and there was tons of different arguments that we needed to go through. And then I sat down with Jonathan, with my colleague Micah Rosendahl. I sat down with Blaze, and we went through it. And we said, okay, we're missing this. We're missing this part. We're missing this. And went back, wrote more. And then my sister-in-law, Charmaine, started working on the editing process. And I didn't realize how painful it was going to be until she showed up on the first day with a medium Oreo ice cap. And she's like, this is just to start, so you still like me at the end. I was like, oh boy, okay. So they tore apart the whole first part, so at least we went through that first so that I could write the next parts in the way that they wanted. And then we're all reading this again. And suddenly we looked at each other and we realized we had a problem. You see, because we've all worked in the pro-life movement. I was probably the youngest one. I started in 2014. And we talk about embryos and fetuses and fertilization and hierarchy of rights and Polaroid analogies all the time. This is normal for us. So we're used to it. So when we read through it, we're like, we don't know if we have missing pieces. We don't know if this makes sense. Because to us, our brains are just going to fill in the gaps naturally. So they actually flew me to BC, where my aunt is an English teacher, and we sat down with it, and we read through it, and again, paragraph by paragraph, and she'd look at it and she'd say, Justina, this does not make any sense. I was like, what do you mean this doesn't make sense? It makes total sense. She's like, no, I'm okay, but this is exactly what it means. She's like, okay, what you said made sense. What you wrote didn't. So we went through it again, and we made sure that what we said made sense for everybody. Because at the end of the day, this isn't a book for people working full-time in the pro-life movement. Yeah, we hope that it's helpful for them as well. We hope that when we have internships that we can use it as part of the trainings. But this is a book meant for people, who are stay-at-home moms, who are working, my dad's had conversations about abortion at business meetings. When you're on the airplane, one of my friends has worked at a grocery store and the conversations come up. This is for people, just, pro-life people doing everyday life, but wanting to be able to make a difference and wanting to know what to say when these arguments come up. So that when they do come up, we don't feel, so we don't actually feel stuck. Now, so again, this resource, we went through it all. One of the best parts for me was I made sure that at that point, I had a testimony from every current member of staff and fit them into the book so that we can show, okay, again, my name is on the front, but I'm not the one who came up with the arguments, and I'm not the only one who's used them, who's seen that they work. So we have tons of testimonies from tons of different people who have all used these arguments, and they've worked. And I'm pretty sure my brother Jonathan showed a testimony video yesterday from interns. We have tons of these testimony videos on Facebook of people who, again, just went out, used these arguments, changed someone's mind. And it is scary for a lot of us. For me, you can do it, you can write a book about apologetics, and you can still be nervous when you head out to talk to people, because it's a sensitive issue, and it's a difficult issue to talk about, and again, it's so important, because a lot lays on what we say, and these conversations are so important to have, but anybody can have them, and that's the point that I really want to make, that this is something for everybody in every situation, because at the end of the day, we do just have a choice. Every single one of us in this room can reach people that none of the rest of us have access to. We all have our own circle. We all have people that we can reach, again, that nobody else is able to. So there can be babies that are in danger, that only you are able to have that conversation that's necessary to make someone stop and think, to make someone say, well, maybe I shouldn't have an abortion. And if we're placed in someone's path, and if we're able to have that conversation, and the conversations come up at the strangest times. I've had friends who were reading the culture war at the doctor's office, ended up talking about abortion. Again, my dad's talked about abortion at business meetings. I'm not sure if that's as coincidental or he's just bringing it up himself. But you can have them at business meetings. It's been done. On airplanes, political rallies, at university, there's, at high school, I went to a Christian high school, and I had people ask me, well, abortion's okay sometimes. Abortion's okay when, the mother's life is in danger. You never know when these opportunities are going to come up, when you're going to have a chance to say something, to do something, and you don't know. That might save a life. Because at the end of the day, and I heard that some other speakers brought some of this up as well, we have a choice. We can choose to live an ordinary life, but at the end of the day, in the society that we live in, with 300 preborn children torn to pieces every single day, none of us here has the right to live an ordinary life. The choice is actually very simple. We either choose not to speak up and babies die, because that's the reality, or we choose to speak up and babies might be saved. That's our choice. So we do nothing and babies die, or we can do something. And that responsibility lies with each of us. Now, I know personally how difficult and how much we can struggle with that. I've really wanted to live an ordinary life. My older brother didn't really give me the option, but I did want to. And it can be hard, right? You don't want to think about abortion every single day. Who does? It's a horrible, awful thing to have to think about, and I know my colleagues feel the same way. There's times when you have to shut it off because it's just too much. We don't want to think about it every single day. It's too heavy. But if abortion has ever become real to you, You can't forget, no matter how hard you try. And I'll never forget when abortion did first become real to me. And it seems a bit strange to say it because, I mean, again, I've always been pro-life. Jonathan's 7 years older than me, so I can't remember a time when we didn't talk about abortion, that I didn't know about abortion and what abortion is. I did the CCBR internship. I'd gone to the Abortion Awareness Project in Florida, and I thought abortion was real to me. I felt strongly about it. I really wanted to do something about it. And then I went to Florida for the second time, and we stood outside of an abortion clinic. There's a man named John Barrows who has a ministry there, and he stands outside this abortion clinic every single day, calling out to the women there and offering them help. Now, so I went to the abortion clinic. I didn't think a huge amount of it, actually. When I went, it was just a small red brick building. I think it used to be a house. And we stood there. It was actually a little bit cold, and at first no one was coming, and I was like, okay, maybe no one's going to show up today. And then the first women started coming up the side of the building and going through the front door, some of them with visible baby bumps, and coming out an hour or two later with little brown bags with medication. And I hadn't realized until that moment that I hadn't been able to believe that people actually went through with it, that people actually did have abortions. I'd seen the pictures, I'd seen the videos. In my head, I knew the facts. I mean, I'd done presentations telling people that 300 abortions happen in Canada every single day, but I still hadn't really been able to believe that there was living babies, with fingers, toes, and that their mothers walked them into a building, and that just several meters away from me, with just brick and plaster in between, there was a man who was tearing apart their little bodies, their arms, their legs, suctioning them to pieces. And women who had walked in with living babies came out the door, empty inside, and their babies were in medical waste containers. And I hadn't realized until then that it hadn't actually been real to me. But it is real. It is real, and that's why one of my colleagues said that after she stood outside of the abortion clinic, everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to see that this happens, that this is real, and that those babies, there was nothing that we could do because it was legal. They were allowed to walk through that door. They were allowed to have the children killed. That was all permissible. And there was nothing we could do. We could offer help, we could offer the world, but at the end of the day, we couldn't save their babies. And not one of us here has the right to an ordinary life, because that is the reality that we live in. And as long as that's the reality that we live in, we can't forget, and we can't stop thinking about it. And when those opportunities come up, and we're tempted to say, this one I'm going to let go because I don't have time for this, I don't have the emotional energy for this, I'm scared, I'm going to do it wrong. Think about the fact that there is women who are walking with little babies into abortion clinics, and that maybe one of those people is the person you're talking to right there. Because that's real. In the introduction in this book, I tell a story from one of our colleagues, Sam. And he said, he had one of his friends came up to him, I think it was years ago. He said, "What do you think about abortion, Sam?" And he's kind of, I don't know what I think about abortion. He didn't know she was pregnant. He didn't know she was actually looking for someone to say something to help her. And he didn't know that a few days later his friend was going to go and have an abortion. He didn't know. And maybe we don't know either why the hairdresser has asked us a question, why the person next to us on the plane has asked us a question. Maybe we don't know why, but maybe there's a baby there that needs somebody to speak for them, who needs someone to say something. Because when people do stand up and when people do say something, incredible things happen. Because at the end of the book, we have another testimony of when someone who did stand up and did speak out, and a little baby named Noah is alive today because they did. And they were scared to stand there and to engage people in conversation. They were afraid. Don't think that they weren't. Don't think that people grow up thinking, when I'm big, I'm going to stand on the street and talk to people about abortion. I don't think anybody has that as, their future occupation. But this person did, and a baby's alive. Now don't tell me that those moments of anxiety weren't worth it. Babies like Noah, Ava, Adrian, MK, they are alive today because people stood up and speak out. Now, again, I know what it feels like to feel, not good enough. Actually, I had a bit of a argument before because we're planning this big book tour, and my picture's on a poster and my name is on the book. And I really didn't want to. And finally, people were getting annoyed with me. They're like, we need to pin this down, Justina. What is your problem? And I finally said, I called up my brother and I said, I know by saying I don't want this to be about me that I'm making it about me, but I don't feel like I have a right to have my name on a book and to be in a book tour. Because there are so many people who are doing so much more and who are so much stronger and so much braver. And there are so many times when I haven't said what needed to be said and I haven't done what needs to be done. And there are so many people in the pro-life movement who are so inspirational. Why can't we put their faces on a poster? And he said, because you wrote the book. Okay. And the reality is we all have our own place and we all have something that we can do. And I hope that all of you go home with a copy of the book, not because I get royalties, full disclosure, but I don't get money for it. Another reason why I said I didn't want my name on the book. I'm telling everyone to buy it. But when we are stuck and when we're stuck in a difficult situation, honestly, there's answers. There's things we can say that will make a difference because every single one of us on staff have seen it make a difference and have seen babies alive because we used simple arguments, because we took opportunities. So the question that comes to each of us then is, we all have the resources all at our fingertips. Are we going to use it? Thank you so much.